Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Ben Ark from LN Bits,
Oh,
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Hello there, sirs.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Binance slammed by the United States after historic settlement says crypto exchange only pretended to comply. Yes, CZ is out at Binance and the company is paying over $4 billion in fines. The CEO has been fired, and they've said in chat rooms that they just attempted to comply, allowing US users to use their product without the permission and without, more importantly, paying the US government. They say that Binance facilitated $900 million in transactions between US and Iranian users in violation of sanctions, as well as transactions between US users and entities in Syria and the Russian-occupied Ukrainian regions of Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk. Trouble for Binance as CZ is out. The SEC is triumphant. Ben Ark, what do you think about this incredible breaking Binance news?
well, I mean, I guess the silver lining is that people are using Bitcoin for more than just trading and sitting on it. They're actually using it for remittances, which is what we always talk about, isn't it? And I on the flip side of the criticisms of value going into sanctioned regions, I mean, what is a sanctioned region as well, but they'll also be being used on the other side for humanitarian purposes, I'm sure. But yeah, Binance have always kind of moved fast and then just flying by the sort of sheet of their flying by the seat of their pants or whatever it is. And that policy has worked well for them, but it was only a matter of time until regulators would catch up to them and remind them they're actually operating in a real world of regulations and things like KYC, as much as it all sucks. This is why we need to build decentralized exchanges. We need to try and stop using these centralized exchanges as much as possible. But there has been some praise for the action, because it does kind of, at least they're making it clearer on regulations, because that's always been one of the biggest problems in Bitcoin in our little industry is there's just been ambiguity in regulations. But it seems with Binance that they haven't they skirted around just general KYC laws and regulations, which were fairly easy to follow, and had they followed a few things, then they probably wouldn't be in the trouble they're in now. I think they are being probably made an example of, and it's working. Like it's sent ripples through the industry, and a lot more people try and be compliant. The US seems to have the worst laws when it comes to regulations in KYC. But yeah, it's it's a shame for Binance, but it's probably a wake-up call that now they need to actually try and comply and stop just moving fast and expecting everything will just work out in the end. But we have actual users in Bitcoin, so that's silver lining.
Well, as you guys know, we've been critical of Binance on this show many times. They have no home. They move from place to place, and it's always looked a little iffy, a little shifty. And now they've been busted by the SEC. But the silver lining here, CZ allegedly has $60 billion. So if his company has to pay a $4 billion fine, it's no problem to him. And the company itself exists. CZ and Binance have made an incredibly large trading firm with no home, allegedly paying no taxes, and allegedly feeding off of the US market, as the SEC now has proven in their settlement. It's still an incredible accomplishment, an incredible company. And again, maybe it's better to move fast and break things. Maybe CZ was in the right here. Dan Eve, what do you think about the breakdown of Binance and the fact that they're just going to keep on going?
Well, I'm definitely really wrong at reading these because I've been all along like, well, Binance seem to comply, don't they? And as they said, they always pretended to comply, which is kind of silly when you think about it. Because was that meant to make them just think they could fly under the radar even though they were going to get caught eventually. What's crazy is how the markets haven't they really didn't dump. Like, you'd think that such a significant figure in crypto as a whole would make, not necessarily Bitcoin dump, but all the other shitcoins and everything else dump. And it really didn't, which is actually crazy, which maybe is a testament to how resilient the markets are, but how single identities are not pushing them. News around single identities aren't pushing the markets the way they used to. Lots of people saying this is kind of a pretty much a setup. Obviously, they have been acting shady all along, but that he's been sacrificed for the sins of shitcoin as the Caesar of Binance, who's now been ousted. Pretty much, I'm kind of thinking he's been replaced by like and dare I go there, but a WEF kind of affiliated CEO already. Kind of seems well timed with the fact that the BlackRock are going for their ETF, and it probably wouldn't be such it would be a lot easier to argue the toss and get it approved with the SEC if Binance were under the SEC's wing a bit more. So this lawsuit's come just in time to say, hey, we're straightening up the company that sort of is the biggest trading company in crypto before we approve this ETF. Maybe he'll get, like, they're saying he's going to get 18 months. Maybe he'll get like a house arrest, like Arthur Hayes of BitMEX. But this is just one of the first many businesses that are being hit by the SEC. There's also companies that are voluntarily winding down their business now. I mean, Bittrex are one of them. They're saying even Bittrex Global now, maybe they're just still worried about the long arm of the SEC going after them. And also, as Ben mentioned about the remittances, what's funny about that is that, yeah, it's good that Bitcoin and crypto is being used for international remittances, but it's odd that it's via a centralized third party. But that is because of I suppose that's because of the fact that it was so easy to go and set up an account up with Binance and trade with them. It pretty much acted like they're not in a decentralized way, but there were few barriers because of their lack of regulation that you're able to use it so easily. So that's obviously going to change a lot soon for US customers, whether it changes for everyone around the world, because they know that the EU Commission will finally get to them. Who knows? Other regulatory bodies.
Obviously, no one knows the future except for the magic 8-ball. However, I think one of the reasons the market might have gone up recently is because they're looking at the Binance situation and seeing it much like the Ripple situation. After Ripple paid their fine to the SEC, Ripple was then legitimate. In the same way, Binance has a giant fine ahead of them. They have to take off the head of their CEO. They have to bring in some new guy. But at the end of the road, maybe they become legitimate or on a path to legitimacy, which again means that we won't lose this incredible trading volume that's happening at Binance. It won't have to move somewhere else or be fractured. It could continue, unlike the Mt. Gox or, as Dan mentioned, Bittrex, other exchanges that have shut down. Well, let's keep moving today. We've got a lot of stories to cover. We've got another one here. Kraken is being sued by the SEC over a failure to register. Kraken is in trouble for offering exchanges illegally operating as a securities exchange without first registering with the regulator. Dan, Eve, what do you think about the Kraken situation as it comes so on the heels and at the same time as the Binance situation?
Again, I think this seems like it's a bit of a coordinated effort, right? I mean, the last obviously there's been the downfall of FTX, which kind of accelerated perhaps these events, but it seems more in time with the ETF being chased by BlackRock, and in order for the ETF to get approved, there needs to be a much more control over the biggest players in the crypto industry from the US markets that are going to be benefiting from the Bitcoin ETF. So I don't know, it kind of seems coordinated to me. They've gone on the same thing though, right? So commingling customer funds, and I think Kraken are arguing that it's not so much commingling of funds, but they're taking profit out of the funds in order to run the operations of their business. So I'm not sure how much that flies and what the accounting needs to be. It sounds kind of logical, right? Because your customer funds, you do get profit from customer funds trading, etc. So where do you pull the funds from? But yeah, it's a bit of a broad stick that they're going after every major crypto exchange with at the moment. So I mean, I don't know who's next. Are they going to go after things like MEXC and all these other ones, Bitfinex, etc.? Are they safe, or are they going to go after them? I'm not sure, but it seems like the long arm of the law is definitely very active right now, and around the winter season, the bear winter, and tis the season to be regulatory.
It does seem like they were watching the FTX trial and they said, hey, commingling of funds. And then they started attacking everyone with that. Whereas before, I think in the Kraken situation, as you're saying, Dan, taking the money out of the fees, not the same thing. We'll see how it turns out in court, but obviously not legal advice here. Ben Ark, what do you think about the situation at Kraken and the possibility that the SEC is cracking down on all exchanges?
Yeah, it is unusual timing, like Dan said, with the ETF around the corner, and it does kind of look like a bit of a clearing of the swamp, which I guess the industry needs in the US if they want to have an ETF and it'd be legitimate. And for people not to, lose their bags to these exchanges. But I mean, with Kraken, like I think with most exchanges, you have like their hot wallet, which is operating with day-to-day funds, and then you have the cold wallet where they secure a vast amount of the money. And then you have like a transport layer between the two, and you try and minimize the amount of like times you need to use that transport layer and send money back and forth between the hot wallet and the cold wallet. So when it comes to the commingling of funds and then paying for the overheads of running the company, I can imagine them doing that from the hot wallet, and the same hot wallet which they use to accept funds, and they just have that as a float, and then that's what they use for operations costs. That's what you use for having enough money there, so they can clear every transaction throughout the day. So yeah, it's I think it's more just their money management. It could be interpreted as commingling of funds, but actually it's just a layer of security to stop them having to make too many hops to that cold wallet to withdraw funds. And there's just a little bit of confusion there, but it very much does look like a clearing of the swamp. I like Kraken a lot. They've been a good exchange for many years. I know a bunch of people work there, and I think they're like the longest running exchange which hasn't been hacked. So yeah, so hopefully they won't get slammed as hard as Binance. I don't think they will. It's just a little bit of a nudge by the SEC for them to be a little bit more compliant.
I do agree it's bad to see Kraken lumped in with Binance. In this other situation, it's bad timing or perhaps an organized event. We've got one more story on this topic. The crypto community reacts to Brian Armstrong's message as CZ steps down. It's not good. Brian Armstrong from Coinbase capitalized on the opportunity to promote his exchange as a regulatory compliant entity as CZ steps down. We've talked about this before in the past. Coinbase was one of the first to take up the idea as we are regulated. We want to be official, talking to the government directly, something that was disastrous for previous exchanges, like what happened with Charlie Shrem. Brian Armstrong and his crew have led the way on this, but even they have been sued by the SEC, have set up an entity in Bermuda, and have a backup plan to go Coinbase International. However, you can see in this situation, they're clearly celebrating the downfall of FTX, SBF, and now CZ. Dan, Eve, what do you think about Brian Armstrong's take on the industry? And perhaps is Brian right? Is he right that they were regulated the whole time? Getting rid of these other players, as Ben was saying, will clear the deck, like cleaning out the streets before the Olympics or an international event. And now Bitcoin is good enough for an ETF. The adults can come in and presumably take all the fees and all the profits for themselves.
Well, as people have pointed out, right, even though they cozied up to the regulators, and we've said this before, it didn't really do them much good because the SEC still went after them. So, and that was the sad thing, right? We were saying how Coinbase tried to play it well. If they wanted their business to be longevity, the business to be operating without issue and without these hiccups, and probably to sleep better at night, right? To know they're not going to get sued. And they still got sued anyway. So Binance just operated on a wing and a prayer, and they got sued. Obviously, it sounds like he's going to be doing time, which is the difference, right? That's the significant difference between Coinbase and Binance, is that whilst Coinbase tried to comply and were caught out by a series of gotchas, Binance pretended to comply, and now CZ looks like he'll be doing time. So there is obviously a significant difference in the result there. He can do, I think they're estimating 18 months, but it's anything up to 10 years. The scale of the operations compared to FTX, it seems like FTX was a bit more chaotic, but CZ obviously has pleaded guilty straight away, something that SBF didn't do, and that's why he was fighting it in court and is being sentenced on it. So these are companies that did it in kind of different ways, right? FTX just were completely lawless. Binance pretended they were regulated, but they weren't. Coinbase were very much in the pockets of the regulators, but still got sued. And the end result is that Binance is still going to be operating. Kraken will still be operating. Coinbase will still be operating. It seems like that one thing that Ryan Armstrong said that's actually correct, that seems correct, is that it gave them quite a big competitive disadvantage, at least up until now, right? And Binance was able to grow to this absolutely, mammoth behemoth size by pretending to be regulated and not actually being regulated. So it's benefited them until now. Maybe Coinbase will overtake them at this stage because they're much further down the regulation line. And Binance's US business is going to be stifled significantly by this kind of setback. Or it could accelerate them further, as you said, that now that they've got the potential seal of approval, right? They've been sued, they're paying the fine, and now they're on the happy path, so that their business can be accelerated. And which might also be why the markets didn't crash, as they would have done 5 years ago, or even a couple of years ago. The markets would have absolutely died after Binance sort of went down, and now they're extremely, resilient. So. Yeah, it just kind of goes to show this is a terrible example of it doesn't matter what you do, the regulators are still going to come after you in some sort of way, whether that's because you're genuinely operating badly, even if you're trying to be good like Coinbase. But it just all seems very well timed with BlackRock, and there's plenty of other ETFs from other companies, but BlackRock seems the one to, that's going to be the game changer here, and probably the one with the most influence that's pulling the strings in the background, potentially, allegedly, whatever. Sorry, Larry.
Ben Ark, what do you think is Brian Armstrong's approach? What do you think about Coinbase and their attention to regulation?
I think if you're operating a clear net exchange or business, then you're going to have to comply. And if you don't, then regulators come after you. And complying to regulations does require resources. And if Coinbase and Brian Armstrong, if they've dedicated time and energy into complying, and then they've used those resources on that rather than Binance, which was just all about expanding, then I think this is, a period in which they can do a little celebratory dance and dance on the grave of CZ. Like Dan said, Kraken, Binance, Coin, none of them are going anywhere. They've all got so much money. It's untrue. But I think it's fair that as a ClearNet company, they're now able to enjoy the fruits of their labor of complying. And it's like if you don't want to operate in a way in which you're regulated, then don't be a ClearNet company. Work on some decentralized exchange or work on something outside of the reach of regulators. But if that's where you're operating, then you have to expect that you will need to comply for the jurisdictions in which you're operating in. It's fair. Coinbase are allowed to do this now. They did sacrifice expansion for regulation for being compliant. So yeah.
Exit question. Just a year or two ago, SBF and CZ were on top of the world, heads of billion-dollar companies, best buddies who lent each other millions of dollars to start each other's companies, giants of the financial industry on the front cover of Fortune and Forbes magazine. but now they're both heading to jail. But as they have now destroyed each other, a larger question remains: who won, SBF or CZ? Dan Eve.
I don't know. Maybe they'll be fighting it out in a jail cell next to each other. I think CZ has asked, right, that he can leave the US before his sentencing. Whether he ends up, I'm sure it sounds like he's going to go to jail. I mean, they seem pretty confident about it. The reports covering it. Whether, but again, he could have house arrest. But it's got to be CZ. He's got to know some sort of, he seems like he's a guy that could defend himself. Whereas, what's his name? SBF is too busy playing computer games. Only his thumbs have got strength
Ben Ark
and fingers, according to his polywoocule.
Oh, CZ or SBF?
Yeah, it would be beautifully ironic if they were sharing a cell together. Maybe they'll do that just for the lols, put them in a cell together. But yeah, CZ.
That's another free sitcom idea right there. Two crypto billionaires in jail, cellmates together. They're like the odd couple. They don't get along. And then, of course, you have all the normal prisoners coming in and out, like stabbing each other, having fights in the showers, all the normal prison stuff.
Classic. Yeah. I think CZ could probably do quite well in that environment. He'll probably end up running the prison before you know it. But yeah, no, the two of them in prison. It's not a humorous thought, no, obviously, for anyone to go to prison. I feel very sorry for them. But just be careful, man, if you're operating with this Bitcoin stuff and you're running a Bitcoin business in regulated jurisdictions, just be careful because they can get you, particularly if you're in the US.
I think the answer is CZ. If you look at the situation, as Dan was saying, they were pretty close to even granting him international bail. They're like, yeah, your company's going to pay $4 billion. We don't think you're going to run off. And they're right. CZ won't run off. He doesn't want to be placed in a worse prison, even assuming that he has to go to prison at all. CZ should be fine in a nice, fancy prison. Whereas, according to the most recent article, SBF has now learned that prisoners are trading Max. That's right. Frozen mackerel in a package of fish are being traded in prison. Apparently, according to the article, Sam traded some fish for a beard trim, for a haircut. Since the American prisons outlawed cigarettes not too long ago, these frozen and pre-prepared fish.
It's tinned mackerel. Okay, it's tinned mackerel's like the currency in prisons because protein it keeps. People have been killed for tins of mackerel. Charlie Shrem talked about that when he came out of prison, that he had a stash of mackerel, tinned mackerel.
I thought it was a joke because even Martin Shkreli like weighed in on it and was like, yeah, he's talking about all the different things that go on and the trading tactics of and the hierarchy of Max. I was thinking I thought it was just a complete joke, but it's crazy. It's actually true.
No, it's kind of cool. It's like anything which is scarce. I don't know, it's fungible. Like it's just money, isn't it? So anything which becomes money.
It's interesting because in the movies, historically, it's always been cigarettes. One of the great things about cigarettes is that you have the pack, and then you could split them up into the individual cigarettes. You have this kind of broke down dollar and change type system. But it's interesting to see it shift to Max and mackerel. However, the article was just so hard to take. The people writing the article, and again, it's fun. You're writing an article, do whatever you want. But the way they wrote it is like they felt that SBF was such a genius that he was going to corner the market on mackerel, and he was going to buy low and sell high, and he was going to short with the Asian gang, and he was going to go long with the Mexican gang, and that just Sam was just such a genius. He was going to rise to the top of the prison because he'd figure out how to trade mackerel, and it was just so absurd. I'm glad he's trading stuff for his beard and things and his trims and keeping nice, but yeah, he's not going to rise on mackerel. Let's give that up. Although it's again another great sitcom idea, another hilarious looking movie. Even just informing the normal people that they're trading mackerel instead of cigarettes is a crazy reveal that I don't think people are ready for. But yes, the winner is CZ above and beyond. He probably even orchestrated this whole release thing, this whole deal. Moving on, check out worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got 3,278 videos, including lots and lots of shorts, Bitcoin shorts generated by AI, with AI generated titles that enrage people, hopefully to the point that they'll subscribe to this show and even take their time to watch an entire show that lasts longer than 30 seconds. Well, there's hoping. Moving on to issue 3, Wallet of Satoshi shut down. Wallet of Satoshi, which provides a Lightning Bitcoin experience to users, has decided to remove their app from the United States Apple and Google app stores and will not serve U.S. customers going forward. They say their decision doesn't come lightly. They understand the disappointing news and will allow all users in the U.S. full access to their Bitcoin funds, allowing them to transfer their Lightning funds to another wallet. Wallet of Satoshi, a hosted Bitcoin Lightning wallet, was a very easy way to use Bitcoin and Lightning. Ben Ark, why do you think they're shutting down? And is this bad news for other Lightning projects?
Yeah, it's totally off the heels of the Binance and Kraken news. Wallet of Satoshi, I mean, that's a ClearNet company operating in a ClearNet jurisdiction, and it's a registered business, and they've been flying under the radar for such a long time, and I've been amazed that nobody's really come after them, because they were using for, you can use it for money transmission, and gangsters can use it for remittances across borders. And to be honest, like, more and more when I go to conferences, and then we're using Bitcoin, we're paying for stuff in Bitcoin, or I'm doing a workshop where we're building some hardware or something, and then people whip out their Lightning wallet and their go-to Lightning wallet as well as Satoshi, and people will have like millions of Satoshis in their wallet Satoshi, and every time I squint and I'm like, one day we will all get rug pulled. I mean, I use it, but I've got maybe like 10,000 sats in there or something, right? But there's a lot of people out there with a lot of money in wallet Satoshi, so it's good that they're reminded that this is a custodial service and they can remove access, and they can also take funds, and they don't. I mean, they're great. I mean, they operate well and they've been a great service for so long, but they must have huge sums of money on their platform, and you don't know. Every Bitcoin service, every Lightning service has been hacked at some point, has lost money, so you don't know that all the money can be accounted for. It happened with Blue Wallet. So Blue Wallet, Igor, who made Blue Wallet, the developer, he had a custodial version of Blue Wallet, and then after a while he was like, right, this is too sketchy, I don't want to run this custodial service anymore. You can still use the software, Blue Wallet, and you can use LND Hub to hook it up to your node or whatever, but I'm going to remove the custodial element of Blue Wallet, but I'm going to give everybody 3 months to take out their money. And then, he did that on Twitter, and then all the Bitcoiners like, yeah, okay, great. My friend Paco, who's been like traveling, he's traveled to like 39 countries over the past year and a half, onboarding people, particularly a lot of unbanked countries. He was using Blue Wallet as his demo wallet, and then he was giving people Satoshis in Blue Wallet. I spoke to him, and he was like, he felt so gutted because he'd ended up rug pulling all these people. So all these people who he'd onboarded who were using Blue Wallet, they weren't on Twitter. They didn't get that release, that press release, like Wallet Satoshi have done now. The service will be closed. In fact, our friend Josh Vitoro, when we were in Mallorca, he went to go pay for a T-shirt, and I said, "Have you got a bit?" Yeah, I've got Blue Wallet. He whipped out Blue Wallet, and he had like $5,000 on there or something ridiculous. And I was like, Josh, you realize that you can't use that anymore because Igor's closed down the service. And he went, oh, what? And I was able to put him in contact with Igor, and I think Igor's made him right and given him the money back. But no, it's using these custodial Lightning wallets, maybe for like pocket change for your daily spends or whatever, but don't like leave significant sums of money on there, because one day everyone will get rug pulled. And this is a good reminder. They're not rug pulling the US. They just don't want to have to battle it out with the SEC, and they don't want to be extradited and put into prison with Sam Bankman-Fried. But it's certainly a good reminder that this is a custodial platform. And actually, like, we need better.
And that's the hard part, Ben. You want to give people Satoshis. You want to give them, a little piece of Bitcoin so they can try it out, or sell them a service for $10 or whatever you want to do. But you end up giving them Wallet of Satoshi. They end up holding all their funds in there forever, because it was easier to sign up with, because you just had to sign up with an email, get a password later. when I've been giving people money and it doesn't happen as often as it used to, I use a green wallet. Then they have to write down the 24 words so that they have a real Bitcoin wallet. Then you could send them funds. But again, you can't do this with the Lightning Network. So this really holds people back. And I see what you're saying. It's going to lead to a lot of people, like I think about black Bitcoin billionaires. A lot of those people probably got Wallet of Satoshi wallets, have a ton of Lightning in there, like you're saying, maybe even life savings type investment level, like, 5-10 grand, like all the money they have, and they could very well lose it or have a harder time gaining it back because they trusted this easier to use shortcut rather than being pained into writing down all those words, which, as it turns out, those words are a magical key that work with multiple applications, multiple formats. You have a Mac, you have a PC, you have a phone, whatever you have a good chance of getting your money out of those words, but a bad chance of this username email combination system.
It's that like security, like convenience spectrum, and a lot of people opt to be on the convenience side, and make themselves then their funds less secure. As long as I think, like, because I still onboard people and I'll say, yeah, Wallet Satoshi's great, use that, but only put pocket change in there. I think, and I feel like these custodial wallets, like we have in LM Bits, if you go and play around with our demo server, we have a warning saying this is just a demo server, only use, loose change, don't put any money on here because one day we'll close the service or break it or something. But yeah, there are better like solutions being worked on now for giving people that onboarding experience onto something like Lightning so they can do fast payments without them having to sacrifice their self-sovereignty and just using some custodial platform. But yeah, it is a problem. So I always wince when I see those like Twitter posts. You get these like Bitcoin noobs with their, those fresh-faced Bitcoin noobs with their nice teeth and their fancy hair, and that they're out onboarding people in somewhere in California or somewhere like Austin, Texas or something. And then they're saying, yeah, I just sent you some Bitcoin. You now own that. That's yours. And it's just like a Wallet Satoshi transaction to another Wallet Satoshi transaction. So it's just like some database flipping Wallet Satoshi. And there's nothing Bitcoiny happening in the background. It's just numbers on a screen. So yeah, the more people are reminded of that, the better. But yeah, we need better solutions, and they're actively being worked on. It just takes time and it's hard.
Yes, it is always easier to give someone just a username or an email, and sometimes they have a better chance of holding their keys longer that way, but not in this case. Dan, Eve, what do you think about the Wallet of Satoshi shutdown? Did you ever use it? What are the normal users going to do now?
well, it's the Lightning wallet that I still use because so Ben, what is the best non-custodial mobile Lightning wallet?
I was going to ask that as an exit question, but you can ask that now if you want. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead. What do we got?
Well, I mean, my life is consumed by LM Bits, which you should obviously run yourself. You can play around with it on a demo server. We are actually making an app just to make it so you can use it. You can download and run it from Android or something. But it's basically just a web view of because it's fully responsive.
Okay.
Server. Yeah. But I'm obviously LM Bits centric, but what is it? It used to be Simple Bitcoin Wallet. The best Lightning wallet was the first Lightning wallet, which was Simple Bitcoin Wallet, which turned into Open Bitcoin Wallet, which I think is being maintained by Zebedee. That was cool because it used like hosted channels, so you got instant inbound and outbound liquidity. But there was a little node running, a light node running underneath it, and then you could then start building up real channels to peers. So you could like federate risk across these different hosted channel providers and things. But sadly, like lack of demand, because there's these easier custodial solutions like Wallet Satoshi, have meant that a lot of the original really good sort of non-custodial, like the Eclair wallet, Android phone wallet was great when that first came out, and you could set up channels and stuff in it, and it kind of onboarded people really, really easily and really well. But a lot of these projects have fallen by the wayside somewhat because there's these like simple custodial solutions, but I think they'll be reinvigorated. Phoenix is really good. Phoenix is a great one to use, and Zeus is very good. You can use that in a non-custodial way as well. and it's Zeus does all the LNRL stuff and works really well with all the LNRL stuff. I would recommend Phoenix or Zeus.
Phoenix or Zeus, cool. Because I mean, obviously, I only have like pocket change-ish on Wallet of Satoshi because it's just an operating wallet, right? It's like it's the same example of having a savings account where you would have your savings traditional, and then and having just like a current account where you could just get money in, money out, and just use that for your day to day. So I do, guilty. I use Wallet of Satoshi, but it seems like it's going to be absolutely fine for anyone that's outside the US. But Vlad made a good point. Vlad Costea from breaking Bitcoin. But the thing he said was, why does living in the US always feel like being part of the third world when it comes to Bitcoin? Seriously, the rest of the world enjoys a much better experience. KYC is non-mandatory, experimentation is not overregulated, and Bitcoin is truly permissionless. And I think that's a really good point. Stop it, dogs! What the hell? Jeez. I know usually.
Well, we also used to have to sign a big form whenever we downloaded PGP back in the day. So there are trade-offs to living in the so-called developed world. But again, access to electricity, unlimited internet, credit cards that work. Like there's so much good stuff in the US that
we got those things in Wales as well, man. Despite popular opinion, we have those things in Wales also.
Yeah. Well, we have, but the problem is we have the dumbest thing ever, which is okay. Well, two things, actually, two of the dumbest things ever, right? So number one is this cookie thing, which drives me bloody wild. Oh, I can't stand it. You guys don't have that in the US and the EU, and we still have it in the UK. This cookie thing, every website, you've got a cookie. There's no automated thing that just says "fuck off." Just press a button.
It's such a failure. They're trying to protect people. They're doing the right thing. They're like, you're being tracked. But the reality is every corporation just says, you're being tracked. Push OK, or go to a complicated screen that's confusing and figure out how not to be tracked. It's not like just an answer like at the beginning, like, would you like to be tracked? Yes or no, save this answer. It's everywhere. And you know what's horrible, Dan? We don't have it here in the US, but it followed me home. I think that it stored itself in my browser or whatever. It's not complicated these days. I don't know, but I'm sure it's in there telling them that I've been to the EU and that I need the cookie warning. And I go to websites now from the US at home, and yeah, I get the cookie warning. So it never stops.
Oh, it's savage. It really is. It's like the worst thing ever. Like they had the internet, and they were like, how can we make using the internet the bane of everyone's misery? But we'll make people put a disclaimer up on every single website. And the second thing that we have in the UK, we had this glorious thing, which is roundabouts. I love roundabouts. And then some smart ass put traffic lights on them. So you end up sitting at a roundabout waiting for the traffic lights when no one else is around, when you could just be going around the roundabout. So yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult trade-off.
But we don't have jaywalking laws where you have to just stand on some road at like 1 a.m. in San Francisco waiting for a light to change. Because if you walk across, you'll get shot by some crazy trigger-happy cop. Well, at least you just cross wherever the hell we want.
Yeah,
I always think
when I go to or unfortunate, but California has withdrawn the jaywalking laws.
Oh, good.
Wow.
So I don't know about other states, but then we have this other law.
Free.
I just heard about. They let you shoplift up to $900 worth of stuff without having any penalties. Like it's a ticket.
That's
like
freedom.
A driving ticket. So seems like a whole nother problem we've got going. But yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, the thing is, wherever you go in the world, there's going to be crazy stuff, right? It's but we've got it we've got it really good in sort of in the UK in general. And as you do in the US, there's just stupid things like how they regulate certain things, and red tape is, in some respects it's necessary, it saves lives and stuff. But the problem is that all these regulatory bodies, they're never going to say, oh, this is fine, we've regulated this industry enough. They're always going to be trying to find new things. It's their end goal to just add new things to annoy people. That's what regulators do. They're like, how can we annoy people today? We're going to regulate cookies. We're going to regulate finance. We're going to regulate this. And so you don't get a happy medium of something that's just the logical what's it called? The common sense version of limits to help people out. You have this crazy overzealous red tape after red tape after red tape, which is why that kind of the what's it called? The not Guardians of the Galaxy. What's the Arthur C. Clarke one? The real funny one with the you know it, Thomas.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Not Arthur C. Clarke.
Oh, that's not Arthur C. Clarke. That's who is it?
It's Douglas Adams.
Douglas Adams. Good old Doug. Yeah, good man. Good man. Hates red tape.
Switzerland, that's where you want to go. Switzerland, they've got a good approach to Bitcoin regulations and also crossing the street and cross the street wherever you want. And roundabouts don't have traffic lights on. It's got the best of everything.
Roundabouts.
I also think the positive way to look at this with the US banning this or that is that we're so incredibly early, and that even you as a new Bitcoiner in 2023 watching us old Bitcoiners saying that we don't know anything is still incredibly early to Bitcoin. I remember when the new iPhone wouldn't let you install Bitcoin wallets, and someone took a sniper rifle and put a bullet through the brand new iPhone so that they could win money that they used to buy an Android or whatever. And everyone was so happy, and Apple's so terrible for Bitcoin. And now you can install Coinbase, you can install all these other apps. So it does blow over. It's a temporary thing. Even at that time, so we're like, yeah, Apple seems like a really smart company. They've made a bad choice in the short term. We think over the long term, they're going to fix this and they're going to come around. So I'm sure it will again. But with the Lightning wallets, if they don't want to run them because of the custodial risk, that is going to change the field. You are going to have to get a new wallet if you were using Wallet of Satoshi. As we're talking about here, and Dan just said, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I was going to say the first thing to do is don't panic. We've been through this before. We've moved out of exchanges. We've moved out of wallets. Like Ben was saying, you find a new wallet that is approved, that's a good one that people say is good. Test it out a little bit, send a small amount, and then all you really do is withdraw your funds from your old wallet of Satoshi, to your new wallet, wherever that is, and you're set. It's not that bad. You can still then you just update your addresses and you can go back to zapping people on Damus or Nostr or whatever you're up to these days. So moving on to issue 4. Issue 4, with an approved BlackRock ETF, the Bitcoin price will hit $141,000 a coin, says thestreet.com, not some weirdo on the internet in a Mad Hatter's hat. New research finds that institutional interest in a spot Bitcoin ETF would draw $14 billion, even more money than FTX had, to the crypto market within 1 year of approval. Ben Ark, we talk about the ETF all the time. Everyone's tired of it. It's been years and years, but still, if the ETF is approved, perhaps $14 billion would enter Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. What do you think about that?
I think it's it's 240 is the target, so they're like 100k off, and then obviously 600 billion. So but so everyone's they're all going to have this is like a legitimate analysis, and apparently by some researcher somewhere, not just some speculation, but no, 240 is the target. Like, we've got the ETF, we've got the halvening, and then what else have we got? What was that other thing we had? Oh yeah, some CBDC being built on Bitcoin in some third world country, not a developing country, sorry. So we have the perfect storm of FOMO, which is going to happen. So we see it's going to push up to 240 and then bounce down and then go back up again. So on our merry way to 600 billion.
Dan, Eve, is 141 far too low?
No, I think I think they're right. I think but the 240, was it 280 figure seems a bit more fitting. After you think about after the next halvening, maybe not like before the halvening, but after the halvening, when we've got the ETFs in full swing, and it's usually it's like a year after the halvening, right? Year and a half after the halvening that things really kick off. I can see that price quite easily. But the crazy thing is that between every halvening, it's funny that you kind of, you pick a figure and it always ends up being much lower than you expected, because it just Bitcoin price just blows your mind. And I think we're well on the way to this 600 billion figure. I think this is really making you're winning me round, Ben, by this 600 billion thing. Maybe eventually, when we're multi-galaxy civilization, I can see that. But yeah, 240 is quite reasonable. Ultimately, it's going to be moon one way or another. What's this? Look at all these zeros, Ben. Go on, are you sharing the screen? Share the screen.
This is 600 billion right here.
What's this? Is that a website?
600. Yeah, 600 dot what the fuck? 600 billion.
600 dot what the fuck? Oh wow, yeah, that is.
Yeah. This is the 600 billion collective. So check it out. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that is pretty good.
600 billion sounds like an awful lot. Checking out the Twitters at techdev_52 writes, as far as liquidity is concerned, the cycle bottomed over a year ago. This has been the part where things accelerate quickly. And he's got a chart showing a 10x Bitcoin bump, another 10x Bitcoin bump, a 7x Bitcoin bump, and according to his chart reading, not financial advice, another large upward pointing arrow.
Look at that as well. Wallet of Satoshi is trending.
It's trending on my Twitter, but yeah. So what do you guys think about the price of Bitcoin with the halving coming up, of course, competing against the Magic 8 Ball, the true source of all Bitcoin knowledge, the baldest truth in the land? Ben Ark, higher or lower this time next week?
It's got to be high. We're going to have some good ETF BlackRock news. People start talking about halving. It's going to go higher.
Dan, Eve, higher or lower?
Yeah, higher. And I think last week I even said as my prediction that we might just reach 40k in some crazy move, and we're not far off. We're just about 2k, just over 2k off. So I'm pretty happy with that prediction, even though it was wrong. It's still a semi-right prediction. But yeah, I'm going that away.
In general, all of this price talk is just crazy to me. I watched a video the other day where I was really excited that the price broke 400. I'm like, it's 400. It's so sweet. Bitcoin is 400. But with Ben's 600 billions rotating in the background, we will ask the magical Bitcoin ball, which I think might have been wrong last week, but we all know the ball is never wrong. It is always right. Therefore, that couldn't have happened. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Reply, Hazy. Try again. So there you go. The ball will not answer. It does not play tricks for you. It is not a dancing pony. Moving on to bonus issue 5. Argentina's new president says that shutting down the central bank is quote unquote non-negotiable. He's got a plan and he's carrying it out. Can Argentina really move from the peso to the dollar? Another part of the president's plan is to move the country not to the Bitcoin that everyone talks about, but to the US dollar. Will this be a good move? They want to adopt the dollar as their national currency. Meanwhile, there's no money, and he's telling the people that the government will not spend money. They'll switch to the dollar, which will allow them to not be able to print any money, and then everything will be fine in Argentina. Ben Ark, there's a major libertarian experiment going on. Obviously, many people on Twitter are cheering this event, even showing pictures of him dynamiting and blowing up the central bank, which is very exciting, but could be a little questionable for Argentina. Ben Ark, what do you think about Argentina's new libertarian government?
He scares me. He reminds me a lot of Pinochet. Like with particularly because he's got this this Marxist conspiracy theory stuff going on, and it's kind of that, like with Pinochet, the coup d'état, and then the very much a US friendly government comes in and then opens up the resources to the US, which is obviously why the US backed the coup. And then there's the Red Scare, and then the Red Scare, and it causes a lot of death and destruction and unnecessary suffering. So yeah, it's. I thought we'd move beyond those types of politicians in South America. But no, it doesn't seem that we have. And he's like a two-bit economist. He's written a couple of crap books. Even the Austrian economists don't like him. I don't know why Bitcoiners are holding him up. He's just yet another example of someone we shouldn't put too much stock in, and then for some reason Bitcoiners support. I just fear that we'll be like the Chicago Boys and Milton Friedman supporting Pinochet. It'll go bad. So whatever. I mean, these things happen. We'll see how it goes. But it's not very exciting. Getting rid of their own ability to be able to be sovereign currency producers and then use somebody else's currency, particularly when there's other countries, such as El Salvador, who are doing everything they can to move away from using the USD. Admittedly, also, they do have someone who's a bit of a dictator, but he's unnerving. He's unnerving. Some of his theories and conspiracy theories, to have someone of that caliber in power, is unnerving.
It is interesting, Ben, because like we say, on one hand, what they're saying is true. We have that book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. We have what the IMF was doing down there, giving these countries loans, getting them addicted to the debt, and so forth. And certainly, I'm not here to say that the central bank in Argentina didn't overspend, but to then cut your hands off and to say, we're going to trust, instead of the central bank in Argentina, the unelected central bank of the United States as our replacement, is just a bizarre decision. I know the Bitcoiners rooting on the outside probably wanted him to go straight to Bitcoin. And maybe he's saying, oh, I can't do that now, or I'll do it later, or whatever. But yes, blowing up the central bank is one thing, taking away the government's ability to spend. But to then just hitch your ride to the United States does not seem as strong a move as to perhaps go in with Bitcoin, get on this technology thing. Or, of course, we've talked before, the value of having your own currency is you can print it. And everyone's mad about that in the chat, but we all know that's how government pays for things. Dan, Eve, what do you think about the Argentina system? And like Ben said, the way that Bitcoiners are just attracted to anyone who takes power, regardless of their background.
Well, it did seem initially like that Argentina would be the next to move on to the Bitcoin standard, effectively, and that Bitcoin would become a currency within Argentina. So, as Ben pointed out, it's insane to say you're bringing down the central bank, but then to move to a currency that's run by a central bank that's not even yours. So you're giving up complete control over the banking system. Now, there's fair enough being critical of it and saying, well, the central banking system didn't work in its current form for your country, but to then go and use someone else's, which has no interests of yours in mind, let's face it, like that's the reason why El Salvador wanted to shift away from the dollar, because of the lack of control. So it's almost like they've given up. Well, they're giving up the control the only control that they did have, and rather than reevaluating, saying what did actually work. I know, Lynch for saying this, but what did actually work which didn't work for the central bank? How can we improve it? To move on to someone else's central bank just seems crazy. Like, well, what the? I did see he says some very off the cuff things, right? I don't know if the translation was right, but I've seen a load of videos where he's like, fucking libtards, the goddamn libtards, the crazy ass leftist libtards. And I don't know if the translation was off or it was a bit of hyperbole or whatever, but he seems like a crazy old character. He seems like an Argentinian, like Noel Gallagher after a few pints, who's like, moaning about Blur or something crazy. He's like, God, but he's quite a character. He's also he's replaced, or is the cabinet that he's putting in aren't as which is kind of a good thing, I suppose. They're not as extreme as everyone expected. He's picking a much more middle of the road cabinet. So maybe a lot of what he was doing is actually all for show. It was all to get elected, to say things have happened in an extreme nature and we need, someone extreme to come along and change things. And then as soon as he's elected, he then becomes the standard middle of the road, tainted by the power, politician that everyone seems to become in everywhere when they say they're going to change things, and they don't actually change things. They just, go with the status quo. So what seemed like a good opportunity for the country to go onto the Bitcoin standard, and really everyone getting excited about the El Salvador effect, right, on a much larger economy, is now nothing but a dream again, and it doesn't seem like it's going to go that way. Goddamn libtards!
Well, and as the article described, switching to the dollar has been successful for other countries in the region, but it almost seems like a 12-step program for inflation-based capitalist economies, where when you're running it really badly and you're out of trouble, you could just switch to the other larger inflation-based capitalist economy that's still running to keep your smaller one running, and they see a 2 to 3% gain, but they're not really solving the problem. Ben, Ark, what do you think about this idea? And again, we're getting into pretty Marxist theory here, that the capitalist system is just holding up these other countries by allowing them to use the dollar, which is, again, just a larger version of the same inflation-backed, out-of-control central bank currency that destroyed Argentina, just a larger one that's going to destroy the whole world, just seeing this, perpetuate itself.
I mean, I just for a long period, like, well, after the Second World War, really, the name of the game was to pull all the resources up from Central South America and enrich the US. And I see it if I go, when I've been away and I've gone to Central South America, I can certainly see US's influence, and it's not all good on those regions. And I mean, it's well documented, like the amount of meddling which happened by the CIA, and the amount of like puppet leaders which were put in who were more friendly towards the US, and how much all the leaders who just wanted some small, socially progressive policies, build a few roads, schools, hospitals, whatever, how they were dethroned, and then they had someone else replace them. So, like, we don't want to go back to that, really. It's not particularly exciting, them losing their central bank and then just using somebody else's central bank, particularly the US, because there's a lot of problems there. I don't know. Maybe it is the path to something. But I mean, they can still use the USD. I don't see why they have to get rid of their central bank. Like, you can still use the USD in Argentina. So just use the currency. You don't have to.
It is possible by getting rid of the central bank and saying they're going to do it. They cause their own currency to collapse, collapsing the value of everything bought or sold in their country. Maybe then they can scoop it up for cheap.
No, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's a greater policy at play. But I mean, he's a wild card. I mean, another populist leader. The world is full of them, and we're moving into unstable times, and that's a big mark of unstable times. You have economic issues, you have and then you have populist leaders, and then you have conflict and war, and that's where we're heading. So sad.
Yes, but it almost seems like something out of the Woody Allen movie Bananas. The revolutionaries are here, and we've brought our new system, the US dollar. Incredibly revolutionary new currency system for you. Oh, it's very Marxist, very, very Leninist. Yes, it's very strong. But we're running out of time. We're going to move on to predictions or story of the week. Ben, Ark, you ready with a prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
Yeah, man. I mean, I sat down today and I just tried to make a video for Noster Market, because I need to start making some videos again over all the things we've been building over at LM Bits, and I'm overwhelmed. Like, Tal this week has been working on in our point of sale extension that you can use it also as an ATM, but then also we have another feature where you can have products, so you can kind of have, like when you go into a supermarket and they just press different products and it calculates. So we've got that in the POS as well. And then DNI was adding liquid Bitcoin support to bolts for looping in and out using liquid, which makes it really cheap to balance channels on your Lightning node. And then Vlad's been working on a login PR in LM Bits as well. So there's so much happening. It's incredible. I don't know why. It's just been a very, very productive week. Probably just like that last little squeeze of productivity before we all calm down over Christmas. I'm not sure what it is, but anyway, it's been a very productive week, and I need to sit down and start making some videos and publishing them. But yeah, hopefully I'll have that. I wanted to get the Nostar market video out today, so I might try and do it after the show, in fact, because it's a Black Friday, of course. So not that I engage with such things, but if anyone who is, I hope you're enjoying your Black Friday experience.
I hope you're shopping online, not in one of those crazy stores. Although I don't know if that happens anymore. They used to have stampedes here. Dan, Eve, prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, no new pigeons have landed, or fortunately for them, haven't landed into my lap. But obviously, I didn't make the connection until today, and that obviously there was Barry first of all, then Larry. Larry's obviously passed away, and unfortunately, I didn't know kind of what to do with him, so he still sat dead in a box outside the kitchen door. And now that I've realized that Larry was the same name as Larry Fink, I think I'll be keeping him as some sort of voodoo doll to help control BlackRock until I can give him a proper burial, of course. But yeah, no new pigeons for me, unfortunately. But I hope I do manage to successfully save a pigeon one day. I fed them. I did all the nice things. Lived in the house. So it was all nice and warm. But yeah, it's a shame.
New pigeons
No
with
new
one down.
pigeons.
New pigeons one down. Oh God.
No new
I want to
pigeons.
imagine that video.
Probably a good thing. Probably a good thing. Well, we're running out of time. I just want to give a shout out to Andrew Callahan and Channel 5. They've got a great new video about the streets of San Francisco. It's an incredibly fair look that both explains how there is problems, but that the problems were caused by larger forces, not necessarily progressive politicians. It seems more like after COVID, the office workers from the technology companies didn't come back, leading to many jobs, including janitorial and other jobs, going away, leading to people being homeless on the streets, not having shops to places to shop at, not having these office workers anymore, as well as other problems, including the fentanyl crisis, the opioid crisis, and the NIMBY movement, which allowed San Francisco to not build any new houses, leading it so that no one could afford to live there. It's a complex problem. He takes a complex look at it. It's a free YouTube video you can watch today. It's called San Francisco Streets over on Channel 5. You've probably heard of him before. He used to be All Gas, No Brakes. He's a great documentary type guy.
Well, I actually, so I started watching it. I didn't know whether it was a spoof or not, but within, like he said, within 90 seconds of starting to interview people, he witnessed a carjacking, and the guy's running down the road like after his car, and he's running with the microphone, going, "What's happening here?" And he can clearly see
it's great. Like, I mean, it's great, like clickbait, and he got on the news and all the viral stuff. The reality is, though, just to check in just a little bit, this guy goes in to pick up his pizza in his beautiful blue Prius in a looks like a pretty bad neighborhood. He leaves it running. Oh. I'm not sure it's a carjacking if you leave a car on the street running. I'm going to guess the doors are unlocked. It didn't look like they shattered the window. So someone just hopped in the car and drove off with it. It's more of a joyride than a carjacking. There wasn't a knife or a gun. Not to say it doesn't happen in the city, but yeah, it was unfortunate. But he did such a good job, I thought, from there, because I was worried he was going to go into this kind of right wing, San Francisco's terrible because of the progressives and rah, 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 rah. And it's great because you've seen it on Fox News, so you can repeat it back to other people. But the reality seems this much more complicated problem with the COVID, the tech workers changing to working at home, the NIMBYs not allowing large apartment buildings to be built so that no one can afford to live there. Thus, these janitorial and other type workers are put out on the street if they lose their job. No one in San Francisco has an extra month's worth of rent saved up. It is so expensive to live there. But yes, it's just a very complex problem. It was a great look that he had to it. And anybody that's, saying yes or no or this or that in the chat, go check it out. It's about half an hour long, and it's not going to, kill you. It's not 4 hours or something, but complex problem, complex look. I really enjoyed it.
It's not as long as a Bitcoin group episode.
No, not
it's an older one as well. Like 3 hour marathons. All right.
But we're running out of time. This is our special Black Friday edition, as Ben mentioned. So we want to be sure to say what McLaughlin always said on Thanksgiving. He said, "Gobble, gobble." And until next time, bye bye.